How are we doing? Great to see everyone here, and a very warm welcome to Mark Johnston that we have here today. Hi Mark, how are you?
Hi, I'm very well, thanks Emma.
Fantastic. And Mark, we're international today. Mark is being interviewed from Australia. It can't be any more further away than from where we are today. So I feel very glamorous, and as if, you know, we've got a superstar in our midst who's calling in just from Australia. So thanks, thanks for doing that. And today we are going to talk about Mark's journey. I feel very, very fortunate. I was there at the beginning. We'll go into a bit more detail at the beginning of his journey, and I have just seen him absolutely blossom and create an incredible business. He already was and had so many resources, so much expertise, but he's really honed that into his property business. So we will be learning lots and lots from him today. And just to touch on a few of those things, to keep you all honed in, is Mark is in Australia and he can run his business still from Australia. He is actually getting a property ready remotely from Australia. He has a booking for a property where there hasn't even been any pictures out on the marketplace, and he is not putting in the furniture. So if you want to hear how you can do that too and be able to have that kind of more remote lifestyle, then let's listen out for that. So Mark, welcome. For those who perhaps don't know you, could you just give us a brief background, a very brief background into who you are, perhaps where you live, all of those kind of things?
Yeah, sure. So I'm an ex-finance director. I live in Northamptonshire. Got into property about 7 or 8 years ago. Went full-time about 3 years ago. And I have a 19-year-old daughter studying at Bristol Uni, forensic science.
Wow.
And it was a very, very last-minute decision that she's actually here with me in Australia.
Wow.
She's finished her first term and was a bit of a loose end, so she's decided to join us.
Well, that would have been a hard decision, but I'm sure somebody had to do it, didn't they? And I went to Bristol as well. So, and I also did science. And I remember all my friends, I actually missed more lectures per week than they even had lectures, because they were all doing non-sciencey ones. So yeah, I know she'll be working really hard there. Great. Well, let's jump in. So you and I met at Touchstone Education. I don't know, must have been, I can't remember, a number of years ago now. 3, 4?
3. I think it's about 3 years.
3 years ago. It used to be in those days when I was working with Touchstone, that we used to have mastermind tables, didn't we? And I remember you coming onto the table, and we had a number of sessions where I helped kind of just mentor you, give you some ideas. And I do remember that you just had so many skills. You clearly already had a really great business sense. You already had all of those kind of things. So it was a real pleasure sort of meeting you. So you said you'd already been in a bit of property. So give us just a bit of that background to your property before kind of we met.
Yeah, so I'd had a number of buy-to-lets previously. And then the next property I purchased, which was to be a buy-to-let, I decided to turn it into a serviced accommodation. I'd had a bit of experience of serviced accommodation with my own home, because I used to travel a lot with my previous jobs through Africa and Asia, and I'd be away for months at a time. So I sort of a bit of a side hustle, dabbled, for 3 or 4 years. But then I thought I'd maybe try and take this a bit more seriously. I've done a full-time serviced accommodation property, and really enjoyed it, and wanted to take it to the next level. I just thought, during lockdown, like a lot of other people, reevaluate things, and I thought, no, I'm gonna take a leap of faith and do this full time, but wanted to invest in my education. hence why I joined Touchstone, to find out how I could scale the business using various other property strategies.
Fantastic. I love it. I love it. And so, yeah, so you jumped on, you got your education, and you, as you said, you were actually coming on, to get a bit of help perhaps with the serviced accommodation, but you were also looking at other strategies. And this is massive, isn't it? For everyone, Mark, everyone jumps in and they kind of like, I love it when people have been, especially with Touchstone, they do a 2-day weekend. And I love people going on that because it just opens your mind up to so much information. But it has an extreme, doesn't it? Because then you have there's so many things that you can do in property. I call it the shiny penny syndrome. So what made you start to hone down and decide to actually concentrate on serviced accommodation?
So the major factor I had was to replace the income from leaving my job. Because I probably done it the wrong way around. I left my job first. But the way my mind worked, I knew that it would really concentrate my mind because I had to replace my income. If I had a job on the side and trying to do property, there's always that sort of comfort blanket of your monthly salary. So I needed to really concentrate and replace my income. And the quickest way that I could see doing that with the skills I already had was scale my service accommodation business. So that's when I started to look at the sort of rent to rent model as well, because I've seen that as the quickest way of scaling. So they were the two that I followed. Like you say, I did feel a little bit. I was looking at other people trying to do the other strategies, and I felt like I was missing out a little bit. But I knew I had to concentrate on what I needed to do. I put the blinkers on and put my head down.
And I have to say, like, it is one of the things that I talk a lot about to, people that I mentor or people that I talk to when you meet at networking events. And the ones that don't make a decision to get help, usually it takes them years and years if they ever get going. And it is because of that. We always talk a lot about, you can read a book, but of those books that you've read, how many have you implemented everything? You can take an online course, but how much have you implemented? How do you know to take that situation and apply it to your personal life? But what you've done is you've taken one strategy and you've stuck to it until successful. And that is just huge, because what people tend to do is they'll get 1 or 2 SA units. They haven't quite got their income. And then it's like, oh, and now I might do an HMO, and now I might try this, and now I might, and suddenly it's like pushing like a snowball up a hill, isn't it? As soon as you get to the top and you've got this massive snowball and you go over the peak, suddenly it gets easier. You still got issues and there's still big bits that fall off, but it gets easier, doesn't it? And that's exactly what you've done. But even within that, I mean, obviously, I know you don't just have rent to rent and things like that. But so how did you sort of decide on, an area? That was a little plug, by the way.
Okay.
Decide on your area, and did you just stay with rent to rent?
No. So I purchased the property, and it was literally across the road from me. So the property was actually a mirror version of the property I was living in. So I knew its layout, and I knew the area. And I know, and we'd spoken before about your strategy about the gold mine area, within a 45-minute drive. So I was, well within that. And I found myself, I was popping over there so often and all that. I was like, this isn't sustainable. But I had the comfort of, if anything did go wrong, that I could go over there. So then I started to sort of, okay, let me try and run this without visiting the property, which sounds weird, but it was only across the road, because I knew where I wanted to go in terms of the business and what I wanted to do, and that was to work remotely. So in effect, I was testing that remote model out with a property right across the road from me. So the next couple of properties I got were rent to rents in the next 2 towns. Actually, one of them I took on as I tried to follow a different strategy. I took a 5-bed HMO one, but I repurposed it in the end because I repurposed it into a smaller part hotel, which is still running now. So it's basically serviced accommodation. So again, I didn't need to visit those very often at all. I just outsourced outsourced the interior design, the furnishing, the cleaning, the maintenance. I just outsourced as much as I could, pretty much everything.
I love it. I love it. You're a man after my own heart. And when you just as sorry, just jumping back slightly. So your history. So you said you were in you sort of had a finance background. What do you think? Because obviously, you know, I come from a corporate background. There's kind of lots of things that I can see have flown, you know, sort of followed and flowed through. What do you think has helped you from your previous role? And has there been anything surprising now that you thought, oh, I didn't know I could do things like that?
So as well as being an accountant, I also studied for a master's, so business in a master's in business finance with the Open University. And I think implementing a lot of the strategic things from the MBA that I put to use in my own business was very satisfying. And that was like, oh, these things, you know, these things and concepts do work. Because I didn't really get to use them too much in my previous roles when I was working for other people. So that was very pleasing, all the effort that went into getting that, you know, distance learning while I'm bringing up a young family and married and doing a house extension and everything else. So that was really satisfying, actually. And the finance obviously comes in handy, you know, when you're doing analysing deals or keeping your own books. So yeah, that's a skill that will always be useful.
Yeah, definitely. Is that something that you would advise people to do, perhaps? Do you think it was helpful to do an MBA type course? Or
they're always useful. It might be a bit overkill for certain strategies, but I've found it useful, definitely.
Yeah, because I think and that's another thing that I talked to a chap called Paul Merrick a lot, and he's always talking about remembering that property is a business, because we tend to just have it as, you know, something on the side, an investment, but it really is it is still a business, very much so. So so talk us through how these sort of properties progress. Did you find, you know, going out and getting rent to rents easy? How did you go about that? That's always quite a big sticking point for some to get them started, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it wasn't easy. The first rent to rent probably took between 4 and 6 months with the same vendor to actually get that signed and across the line. And then a bit like buses, the next one came a month later. So I'd done those myself, both direct to vendor. What I then found was my time was then getting taken up running the business. So I didn't have the time to chase down landlords and vendors. So I did then go to the sourcing route. So basically said to sourcers, this is the kind of property I'm after, these are the areas I'm interested in. Come back to me with the options. So I managed it myself. I found it difficult, and I was prepared for all the no's that you get from people and having to explain it, and people thinking that you're mad and everything else. But I mean, I got there in the end myself, but then just time. I didn't have time after that to do it.
Do you know what? I really love that because quite often people start out with sourcing properties, and and I think both ways, work if you want to find it yourself or you want to source it. But what I really like about you is yours was really very much a business-led decision. You had got to the stage where things were starting to grow. The business needed to grow. It needed you. You're the helm. You needed to be there. And actually, you could see that your time was more valuable than a few £1,000s spending hours and hours. Let's be fair, it can be, can't be? And it can still, even once you've got a few, it can still be a bit of a drought for a while, can't it? And then suddenly you'd find some more, and it's all that time and effort. So yeah, I think that's it's a really nice way that you kind of turn that around.
Yeah, I sort of had to there's people that do this sourcing full time. So I need to go to them, basically. Yeah.
And how was that? That's just an interesting one. Did you kiss a few frogs with the sourcers as well? Or were you able, because you had that experience, you were able to be quite, decisive on who you were able to work with?
Kissed a lot of frogs with deal sourcers. I found that very difficult, but it took me about, again, another 6 months to get one across. I had so many deals put in front of me that the numbers just didn't stack up for me time and time again, and I was like, this is crazy. I got some recommendations from other people who had actually signed deals with deal sourcers, and I focused on 2 in the end, and I actually went down the bespoke route. So rather than take the deals that the sources already had found, I went down the bespoke route where you can, if you fill out the forms, put your criteria across, put a bit more of the deposit up front, and they go and find them for you specifically, and I like that approach because it meant that I could concentrate on the areas that I was really interested in. And I could concentrate on the size of the property and the different property criteria, rather than just getting presented with a 1-bed flat in the back and beyond that just wasn't going to work anyway.
I love that. And that's, all of these things are the foundations and the building blocks of a really successful business. So, a lot of people, and you'll have spoken to it, they come to me and, I found somebody's found me this sourcing thing. Oh, brilliant. Where is it? Oh, it's 5 hours away. Oh, have you done your due diligence on that? No, but they said it's a really good deal, and I've looked at their numbers and it looks great. So that's why, me banging on and on and on about knowing your gold mine area, because when you can be really specific, and I don't mind a sourcing company then saying, yeah, absolutely, that seems like a good area, we're happy to spend time looking. And if they say, oh, a terrible area, we never want to go there, then maybe you might want to reconsider your due diligence. But what you're suggesting is, I've done all my due diligence, I know either from experience or from my due diligence that this area works, and the number of houses, the type of property, the area, it's for these type of people. So suddenly it sounded like you've given them a whole script of what they need, and then they go out and find that for you. And that when it comes back, you're going to be within a few parameters, and you're definitely going to be giving them their money and potentially go and find you more. Yes,
definitely. And that's what I wanted to, so whenever I do anything in business, rather than look at things as a sort of customer supplier relationship, I like to look at them as a partnership. So, and that's what I want to try and get with the deal sources, is to try and build a partnership with them. And so, I've been back time and time again to the same ones. And then you sort of build that trust, and then they know what I'm looking for, and they know they can, if they find it for me, 9 times out of 10 I'll take it as long as the numbers stack up, etc. So we have trust in each other and confidence in each other, and that helps. It just makes things a lot smoother.
Yeah, I love that. And in fact, I love your partnership. I'm a huge advocate of that. We've just taken on a new kind of cleaning operations company for our hotel. In fact, she's doing a couple of other bits as well. And, you know, the biggest thing for me is that they understand how important they are. Obviously, we know they can do a really great job. And anyway, they weren't quite, last weekend, they haven't quite got the tech. And I could feel that she was a bit overwhelmed. We've got, you know, we're trying to get everything done. I haven't managed to get the photos uploaded. And rather than going back, you know, a bit like, oh, well, it really needs to be done, it's part of your job. For me, it's kind of like, okay, well, what can we do to make this easier for you? What can we do to ensure we can get what's best for both of us? Do we need to give you more training? Do we need to do this? And I think that exactly, I'm the same with you. It is all about partnership rather than you're right, you're wrong. It's what can we bring together to make this work? So, and how have you found your sort of team? Sorry, carry on.
No, I was going to say I have a similar thing with my teams of cleaners and maintenance people. I like to think that, you know, we work as in partnership with each other, and what I try and do, especially with the cleaning teams, is if I ever get any sort of glowing feedback from a property about its cleanliness, I will share that with the cleaning team. Because I see far too often people are only sharing negatives with their teams, and I think that's you've got to share the positives and the negatives, and I think they really appreciate that as well. So I've just taken on, I've just launched a new property in Cromer, and I'm sort of engaging a cleaning company over in that area. It doesn't quite work, or doesn't quite fit with my normal processes. But I've done exactly what you've just done, and spoke to them on Friday and said, right, how can we work together and sort of come to some common ground between their process and my processes, and we'll make it work. Because I like to be more sort of solution focused rather than problem focused, and just move forward.
Definitely. It's about having your ears open, isn't it? So when my operations manager, he'll sort of, you know, we'll take on, I don't know, let's say a new app or something, and he'll be a bit like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll give it a go. And he will genuinely give it a go. And there's always this kind of feedback. And then he'll say, it's not working. And as much as, you know, it's the best thing, we'd all done it together, we'd all chosen it together, we'd all done this, that, and the other, we really thought we'd made it. If he says it's not working for him, it's not working for him. Now, we'll have obviously before that, you know, done some training, done this, that, and the other. And as grueling as that might be, if it's not working for half of your team, the main half, something has to change. And over the time, because we've been fortunate to use kind of, you know, a few different channel managers, so a few different cleaning apps, a few different operations things, you suddenly start to say, well, we really liked that, we'd like to incorporate that. And so over time, we've tried to sort of bring things together. But I do think, I know initially I was a bit like, this is the way I want to do it. Come on, let's do it. And there's no amount of cajoling. Come on, no amount of positivity. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And that's where, you know, I think, as you've said, taking that role of actually listening. Well, what is the problems? Is there a solution within what we've already got, or do we have to potentially add something in, change something? Because for me, and I'm sure you're the same, Mark, the cleaning side of the team and the operations is just the number one thing.
Vital, absolutely vital. And as much as, you know, I've spent so much time building the processes and systems behind that. And I think, you know, you've got them as tight as I can. I can, you know, from my side, I can always improve every aspect of the business. But it's so from sitting where I am now today in Australia, I've got the confidence in every cleaning team that I've got back in the UK, to do a fantastic job. And that just makes my life so much easier. Yeah, they're vital. So when I find good ones, I hang on to them.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's sort of talk through that, because you and me both, we're absolute lovers of kind of automation. Do you want to kind of sort of talk us through? So, for instance, my first year, I kind of juggled everything pretty much, and then it came, well, I suppose, sort of 10 months. I took on my first VA. I had sort of 6 properties at that moment, and I really started doing that. What was I thought at the time, real automation. And then since then, it's happened, I would say, multiple times, because you have to come and reassess that. So how's the sort of automation journey looked within your business? How quickly did you start? I mean, obviously you spoke about your the place opposite. That was the start.
So I think that are you there? I think it all paused for me there.
Yeah. Did you hear the question, Mark?
You started to talk about automation.
Yeah, if you could just talk through your journey with your properties, as you know, how did you start with automation? What was the kind of progression over time? Oh dear. Did you hear that?
Okay. A bit lost. Yeah. So like lots of other people in serviced accommodation, I done my research into channel managers, and decided to go down communication.
And which one do you use?
A bit like yourself, I use Guesty for hosts. So it's the sort of smaller brother to Guesty. So it does everything I need it to at the moment. You often look over the fence to see what other channel managers are doing, but I've got to a stage now where it'd be a difficult change with the number of properties, including teams, etc. So I'm sticking with what I've got for the time being. It's not broken. I went through. I think I'm on my 3rd VA. So the VA I'm using now, I think I've got from you previously, and so that's been 18 months or so now. To Bella, and she's absolutely brilliant. Seems to be every week she's taken on more and more tasks. So that's excellent. I do harness other sort of technological items, so things like landlord specific smart thermostats, which link into the reservation calendar, so they come on like an hour before guests snap, go off an hour after they leave. Things like noise monitors, crowd monitors, and CCTV cameras, which are more preventative things really to stop parties and everything else like that. And like I said before, I just outsource as much as I can. So I found an interior designer who will work to a brief and furnish a property. And without me even visiting after. Once we've had our initial brief, I don't pretend not to visit. And I found myself a decent photographer, and those two work together brilliantly. They're like my little power team when I'm setting up a new property. And the cleaner, the sort of Guesty for host has a cleaning portal, so the cleaners can log in and see their tasks for the week. So they'll know where the check-ins, check-outs are. They'll have access to guest arrival forms, so the guests sort of will tell us what time they're arriving, whether they want twin beds, king-size beds, whether they're bringing pets, and things like that. So I just try and automate as much as possible.
Amazing. And just one of the things that comes pretty naturally to me, but surprisingly it doesn't seem to come that naturally to others, is just giving it all away. I'm rubbish at a lot of things, and I'm really happy to give it away. So you clearly seen the benefits, but equally you are just handing over the reins, and that's not necessarily that easy. How were you able, just as an example, to just hand it over to the photographer and the interior designer? How did you come to that mindset to be able to do that?
I think with the first one first essay I set up myself, it took me a long time to get all the items in place. Get it furnished, and I was always forgetting something. Like I say, it was just across the road, so my first, it didn't matter so much then, so I could go and do it. And then I tried to take photos on my iPhone. Doesn't it? People, once you've had them done professionally, you can tell.
Yeah.
So the next one I set up, I just thought, right, I need to get someone in to do this who can do it quicker than me and better than me. So I got hold of Eloise. I think we both know Eloise, don't we?
Yeah, Eloise Bright.
So yeah, fantastic. So once I started to sort of see the benefits of outsourcing, I was like, right, what else can I outsource? So yeah, I just done as much as I could outsourcing. So yeah, I know what I'm good at, and I know what I'm bad at. So just outsource the things I'm not so good at and concentrate on things I am good at.
But also it comes down to, doesn't it? Like I'm not too bad at, doing admin stuff. And there can be times in the day where, I'm kind of post afternoon, and, I like to have meetings post afternoon because that keeps my energy up, and I don't want to do a big project. So I could do lots of things, for instance, that my VA does. I could babble away doing those, but inherently I know that's not going to get me going forward. And I still can't believe that people who have jobs don't have VAs. Like, if you're working outside of 9 to 5 and you get paid a good salary, you should have a VA. Like, I just don't understand it. 10 hours a week, I don't know, 50, 75 quid, whatever it is. Why would people be not having their work-life balance? So how was that transition for you? Obviously you had quite a high-powered job before, so presumably you had people working for you, but how did you find that transition of working for a VA, and especially one who works miles away in the Philippines?
Yeah, it's a strange concept. And sort of took me a little while to get my head around it, because it's almost sort of, one mindset would say, right, well, why would I need somebody to do the things I can do anyway? But then when you sort of, when I started to look at the guest communication side of things, they might ask one question, but it leads into a whole conversation, and that's what, once I got my VA involved, I realized how much time that was saving me. So initially you think it's like, say it's one question, but it leads on to other questions, and also once that was taken away from me, or I'd sort of delegated it, it freed up my time, but also I wasn't getting the interruptions that I was getting previously, which allowed me to concentrate on whatever it was doing. If it was finding my next rent and dealing with landlords, etc., I wasn't getting this noise from guests, because I knew that confidently that someone else was dealing with that and dealing with it well. So yeah, it was a revelation.
Yeah, I mean, you and me both. For me, it really was that cliche where people would say, oh, you've got to work more on your business, not in your business. But there was just no wood for the trees for me. I was just like constantly like, kids and, throwing pieces of paper here, there and everywhere. It just seemed just overwhelming. And there never seemed to be any good use of my time. you got a plan. I never seemed to have time to plan. Like, just everything just didn't seem possible. I'd see new apps and I'd think that would absolutely answer my needs. And then I didn't have time to research them. And then I didn't have time to implement them. It was just this kind of ongoing thing. And then as soon as I took on a VA, it was just quite crackers. And it was things like that research. Like, I love, like, Micah, my lovely VA, who, by the way, the only reason Mark is here right now is purely because of my VA. She has sent him, how to get on, what time we're doing, what we need to do, this, that, and the other. We've had a couple of, probably just a couple of WhatsApp messages, haven't we? And that's
literally, yeah.
And that's basically been it. But you felt confident to come here. But for me, it's those research. Like, she's actually implemented something into our SA, one of our SA units. And it was because she knows I'm constantly striving to save her time as well. And she came to me and said, this is something that will save me time. Is it okay? I mean, they're very polite. Is it okay if we look at this? And I'm kind of like, hell yeah. I mean, if you think it's going to save you time, it either costs me nothing or only a minuscule amount. I don't want to start necessarily spending huge amounts. Then I'm all over it like a rash. And on top of that, it suddenly opens your mind up. Like, I've had a new thing recently where I run I'll plug, but I run a monthly 2 to 4 hours a month where people come in. It's a subscription. It's nothing. It's like £10 a month. But in that, you know me, I love mindset. And one of my new mentees, we've really gone quite deep into some of the mindset stuff. And I thought, you know what, I need to go back to concentrating much more on the mindset again. So I want to do once a month, but I wanted to formulate a program. And already, just with my VA, ChatGPT, we're just formulating a program, a 6-month program. I won't do very much in that formulation. And all I have to do is just turn up and teach it, basically. And that's suddenly all done. Well, that would have taken, I don't know about you, Mark, but that would have taken me 6 months to prepare in the past.
Yeah. So on a similar sort of note, my VA came to me last month, I think it was. She set up this Trello. So she was creating all these different boards for things that she wanted to remind herself about. So tasks that she didn't want to forget, etc. And so she asked me to log in, take a look. We discussed how this would benefit us, how we should work together with this, what input she wanted from herself. And I thought, yeah, okay, brilliant. I knew of some of these apps, but I wasn't at a stage to implement them. So no, things like that, they're absolutely amazing. So there are things like, when gas certificates are due, etc. She sets herself reminders. She knows which plumbers and heat engineers to go and contact and gives them access. Oh yeah, it's brilliant. Couldn't do it without VA.
Yeah, I love that. No, we're the same. We use, actually, Trello is kind of like what I would call our filing cabinet. We tend to use not so much for projects, and then we use Asana. And yeah, Micah has exactly the same. We have something Monday to Friday, and she each day. So like, what day is it today? Monday. So everything will be today, and the rest of the week will be mostly bare, obviously, unless there's spitting. And then if she hasn't completed the things today, it all goes into tomorrow. And because that enables us, if I suddenly need her to do something, I can go in there, see where her priorities are, and that might be different. I might be like, oh, that doesn't matter, don't do that, do this. That's usually the thing that we crop in. So no, I'm really pleased. I would really recommend, guys, really think about letting go and getting a VA, because it can absolutely transform whatever business you're doing, whatever you are, anything that you do repetitively, or if you're running your own business, stop, like, just stop. You know, there's more to life. Anyway, into the nitty gritty. Sorry, back to it before I get off my soapbox. So you mentioned, you know, I love that smart thermostats and definitely those logging into your channel manager as well. That is a massive saving from utilities and things. That's great. So Minute, it sounds like you use CCTV. What do you do about locks and things?
So in a couple of properties, I've got smart locks. So the channel manager sets the code for the smart lock remotely to a code that assigns for those particular guests. So it only becomes active, you know, when they check in and when they check out, which are brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And you can give like the plumber, etc., their own code, which is valid for like 24 hours if they need to go in and do an emergency job. But most of the places I have 2 lock boxes. So there'll be a lock box for the guests, and they have the code to that, and then the lock box for tradespeople. You know, I love technology, but sometimes you have to think of the lowest common denominator. So with some places where we have the smart lock, sometimes it's a bit too much for people in terms of working it and things like that. So I do stick to the lockbox theory, which is nice and easy. And so I had an example 2 weeks ago. When someone had absolutely locked themselves out of the house without a key. So, you know, he was on the phone panicking because he locked his daughter inside. It was only 2.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So panic stations. So I gave him the codes to the emergency lockbox or the tradesman's lockbox, and he let himself in within 30 seconds. Yeah. So I mean, a smart lock would have done the same thing, but but yeah, you just have to think about these kind of situations. Always expect the unexpected.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Which smart lock do you use?
The Yale.
Oh, you use the Yale.
Yale keyless. So they work smart with a code and then I leave a fob inside those properties, so it's a bit quicker when they're coming in and out. But again, those fobs are very easily lost as well. So
yeah, I mean that's the thing, isn't it? For me, it was always about, you know, lost keys, all of those. I do love a smart lock, but exactly, there's no perfect solution. So as soon as we start getting some older guests in the hotel, it all gets a bit more challenging. In our particular smart locks that we've got at the moment, I've had a few. You have to press the lock before the number and then the lock at the end, and people just miss it. But I do love the fact that we can let them in remotely, so it's quite useful. We've done like the odd viewing for whatever reason, or letting in trades, as you say, and you can literally, they say, oh, I'm at the door, and you just open it for them. That's quite fun. Quite like doing that. I also quite like being a poltergeist because we can turn our lights on and off and things like that. I think that's quite funny. But yeah, no, so I do like the smart locks, but equally, like yourself, I've got a lockbox at one of my properties because it would be price inhibitive, you know, the price of a couple of lockboxes compared to changing the doors and all of those kind of things. It just doesn't make it worthwhile. So yeah, I absolutely I'm in agreement with that. So yes, obviously we've talked about this kind of automation and things like that. So with regards, you've obviously scaled your business and you've done incredibly well. So you started off with 1, and now you've got 30, and you're still adding more as it comes. So was this kind of, did you always have a number? Did you always know that it was going to be some purchased, rent to rent, managing others? Can you sort of tell us that journey of how your sort of scaling happened?
Yeah, so it's, you know, the traditional thought for me was to buy, but then you no matter how much money anyone's got, you know, it runs out eventually, and because I also needed to scale very quickly, I went down the rent to rent route. So got a few of those. And then on my sort of journey, my property journey, networking events, I was bumping into other landlords who wanted to get involved with service accommodation, and then started to reach out to me, and sort of say, "Oh, could you give us a hand? Would you mind managing mine, etc." And that wasn't. I never set out to do that. I didn't see that coming. But I said yes to and I thought, I'll be a fool to say no to this, because it obviously builds the portfolio, creates cash flow, and the other benefit that I didn't really see is when I've got a number of properties in pockets of the UK, it really helps with the booking. So if I get a approach for a direct booking for 2-3 months, but there's, I've got some scattered bookings in 2 properties, I can potentially move them around to then free up one of the calendars, so I can take that longer booking. So it had those benefits as well. So yeah, but I never had a number in mind. I've just been keep growing and strengthen the processes, every time. So I've done a bit of growth, a bit of consolidation, make sure everything's still working, and then another bit of growth. So yeah, that's kind of been my plan, and to get it to a point where I could just work remotely, and be anywhere. And the original idea behind all of this was, my fiance took early retirement from a full-time job, and is a property investor as well. My daughter was about to go to uni, so she went last year. So I had these sort of things on the horizon, sort of outside influences, I suppose, that I thought, right, okay, if I can get this business to a certain size that A, replaces my income, but B, is set up so that I can be a digital nomad. Because once my daughter went off to uni, I had me and my fiance had no ties, really, no geographical ties. So we tried it in small doses. We bought a camper van. So we just take that on adventures and work from that. So this trip here is actually the biggest test. I've worked remotely before, but this with this number of properties now in the portfolio, being halfway around the world, plus the difference, it's and touch wood, it's been going great so far. So this was a real big test. It is a test. And so when you contacted me about doing an interview, I was like, oh, I'm in Australia, and I was like, well, no, actually, yes to the interview, because this is the whole point of why I'm doing what I'm doing, to prove that business doesn't stop. So yeah.
Oh, absolutely, love that. Love it. You've done so well, and you were so right in your network. I just loved, so obviously I interviewed Sue Wesby the other day. She's you manage a property or two for her, and that's so lovely when you see, and we've also mentioned Eloise, and I know you all kind of utilize each other's services. And that's what's so lovely when you come into a kind of a network like that, and you've all kind of grown together, and it's really fantastic. Everyone sees that you've got, so clearly you've done really well in the service accommodation management side, and it's everyone doing that. So I love that. But what I really noticed about you, and I had a quick look through your properties, you've got quite a diverse kind of portfolio. So I know when I started off, I was just all about 2-bed flats. Like, I was a bit terrified to do anything else initially. And you've got a real diverse amount. Please, can you tell us like what the extreme diversity is and why you went down that route?
Yes, not all of it's out of choice. But I'm not saying I've taken them all, and I'm not saying I've taken on everything. I have turned people away, and I have turned properties away. but I've got my sort of criteria when I'm buying or doing my own rent to rents. I've got the criteria of the property that I like and that suits me. But when people come to me and want me to manage their property, I still do my research about the property in the area. So they range from the small I've got a studio that I manage for somebody, and like my the HMO that we discussed earlier that I repurposed into a sort of apart hotel. I'll just rent them out per room. It's one room with an ensuite in them, and then it goes up to 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms, and they're as far north as Doncaster, and then we come down through Nottingham, Derby, Windsor, Bath, Swindon. So yeah, it's but the proof of the concept was in the first couple where I used your sort of gold mine area to have them locally, built up the confidence that I could manage them without visiting them. So then when people come into me with a property in Windsor or whatever, I could confidently say, yes, I can manage that. So yeah, but they've all got their own little nuances, and with the different areas and different size properties, you have to put a different pricing strategy in. But that's all research beforehand. But yeah, no, quite a diverse range, and all of high quality.
Amazing. And and going back to something that you said, which to me is so key and so important, is you spoke about growth and consolidation. So I've got a new lady who's taking on her first rent to rent. She's gone to a big management company and they're charging a lot of money for her first one. I think there's very little margin in getting somebody else to manage your rent to rent. So the only other option is to go for somebody who is much smaller. So for instance, like you, when you first started out. But one of the things I said is you've got to be really careful. If there's somebody who's got 5 properties and they want to add an additional 30 in the next 6 months, you got to see their systems. Are they ready for it? Otherwise, it's going to break. Have they got everything? Are they ready for direct bookings? Are they ready for this? Have they got the automation? So yeah, I absolutely love your growth consolidation. It's so important. So just touching on that, and I'm aware of a bit our time now. So direct bookings, I mean, that's just a huge thing, especially for a management company, especially for your own property. What do you do? I mean, it's the mecca, isn't it? What do you do actively to get direct bookings?
So we do offer discounts to returned guests. I think this year, 2024, direct bookings have accounted for about 42% of our overall bookings. We get recommended. I've got guys at property from Hungary who were last year working on a new loading bay of some factory, and they've been recommending me to lots of the other guys that are working on the same, different parts of the same building site. So there's all that. There's talking to local companies. There was a local company that were building a factory locally, and I housed about 12 of their workers for about 3 months, I think it was in the end. So there's lots of different, so talking to local companies, recommendations, leaving your QR codes in the in the welcome folders at the properties, and giving guests a bit of a discount, and sometimes saving some of the more sort of popular dates. So don't put those on the online platforms like Airbnb, Booking.com. Keep them back for your own website, and people soon get in contact. I've just had we're doing a flip of a property that's not quite ready. It'll be ready on Wednesday, and I've already got a direct booking for some guests who are coming to Silverstone weekend, and they booked without seeing the property, without seeing photos. They found me online, but everywhere's booked for Formula One. I've got 14 properties in Northamptonshire that are booked for next weekend. And they just contacted me like, "Oh, I don't suppose you could help us out. We've been let down. We need somewhere to stay." And I was right, okay. So I've helped them out, and we've got them booked. And yeah, they've not seen anything about the property, but they've been on my website and looked at all my reviews, looked at the quality of the other properties, and so they've got the confidence to do that. But yeah, direct bookings. I mean, they're generally easy to manage, and then so for myself, and if I'm managing them for a property for someone else, there's no platform fees to come off of the money at the end of it. So yeah, it's a win-win situation for everyone.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. So, I mean, you talk incredibly positively, Mark, about the business and your progression. I'm absolutely certain that you have had your ups and downs, things falling apart, things being good. What keeps you going? I mean, I always, when I start off with people talking about their why, what keeps them motivated, but what has kept you going to continue to be successful the way you are?
I don't like failure. And just to prove some people wrong sometimes, I'll just put the effort in. But it's more about I enjoy what I'm doing. I really enjoy what I'm doing. So it doesn't feel like work. But I really want to have this sort of lifestyle, if you like, where I don't need to be around a 9 to 5, let alone be in an office 9 to 5. So it really motivates me. It's more about the success, and you see guests happy with the property, you see things working, you put in no process, you see it working. If I put in a new pricing strategy into a property and I see it working, it's successful. I get a kick out of that. So that really motivates me. Yeah.
I love it. Amazing. And what an idyllic lifestyle. I think I think I'm not made for office jobs anymore. It just doesn't suit me at all. So okay, so I see we're at just the last couple of minutes. So what is next for you? Where is your sort of hopes and aspirations for the next three to 5 years?
So I'm going to still keep growing with the service accommodation business. I'm just in the process of remortgaging 2 of my own properties. So I'm going to look to do a flip for the second half of this year. I might have. I've got a potential private investor as well who's talking about doing something with me. So continue growing the company, continue acquiring assets, and I've just had my my SAS pension approved by HMRC. So I'm going to look to do buy some commercial property as well through that. I mean, the idea behind all of this is, the long-term aim is to use property for my retirement and leave a legacy for my daughter. And what she does with it after that is up to her. But I just want to give her the option and the choice to do that. So yeah, that's where I'm heading.
So it sounds like you need to get her nicely educated. Is she kind of interested in property at the moment?
Not at the moment, and that's fine. I'd rather not disturb her sort of degree at Bristol. So she, get that under her belt, and that's she can always fall back to that or just continue with that. But if she ever wants to come into property, she knows where I am. But she's not much interest at the moment, but never say never.
I love it. Yeah, I think once they start seeing, your freedom, the fact that she's sat in Australia at the moment. I think that kind of gets the interest. And once they start having to work for a living and realizing that it's not as exciting as it might look on the outset, things can start to play towards that, can't they? So amazing, your journey. I feel very privileged that I was there at the beginning and have seen you create an immense business. Is totally down to you, your hard work, your diligence in creating incredible structures within the business, working with people, knowing that other people can do some things better. And I think that is so key, and really having a sort of a vision, but likewise being open to opportunities as they come along as well. So how can people find you if they are looking, for instance, for a management company or looking to chat to you or follow you? Where would you suggest that they find you?
Probably easiest is the website, which hopefully people can see behind me somewhere. So it's www.6mj.com. From there, they'll be able to find me on my socials as well, or just drop me a WhatsApp. The number's up there, 07405 606060.
I love it.
I'm happy to chat to anyone, even if it's just, a little bit of advice, or they've got a question, or they're looking to get started, or whatever it is. I'm very thankful to yourself, Emma, for all your advice and your motivation through our mentoring sessions. I found those invaluable, just to give me the confidence that it's doable, and I just need to go and put that into action. So yeah, thank you.
Oh, I appreciate that. And yeah, no, that is great. Well, thank you so much, Mark. We've covered a lot in that. That's really, really brilliant. And I really appreciate your time. And I will now allow, it must be quite late with you. Is it kind of nearly 10 o'clock at night?
10 o'clock tonight, yeah.
Wow, there we go. Thank you so much for spending part of your evening with us in the beautiful Australia and showing us that it is possible to live a nomadic lifestyle, even with something like serviced accommodation that tends to be seen as requiring you to be there all the time. So amazing. Thank you for inspiring us to see that.
No
take
problem.
care, guys. Thank